but the owner of British Gas, Centrica, is set to pay £59 million to shareholders after profits of £1.3 billion. This comes as oil company Shell has reported record profits of $11.5 billion, doubling its earnings in a single year.
So with energy bills set to reach record highs this autumn, is it time for the energy firms to start sharing their wealth? We're joined now by the author and anti-poverty campaigner Jack Monroe and Chief Operating Officer and Energy Analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Andy Mayer. Welcome, both of you. Jack Monroe, this is the doomsday scenario that you were predicting, you, Martin Lewis, others who have been looking into this for a long time. When you see these record profits today, and Centrica say we've suspended our dividend to our shareholders, and it's the first year we're doing it, we're only giving them small amounts. What do you think?
Well, suspending a dividend and only giving them small amounts is a contradiction in itself.
Well, as in now that they're going to start again, they're only giving, in their view, £59 million.
Oh, only £59 million. Well, the people who are struggling to heat their homes at the moment, the people who are suffering from respiratory distress and respiratory disorders because they're living in cold, damp homes, the people who are ticking time bombs for chronic illnesses 10 years down the line because they can't afford to heat their homes and look after themselves properly because of the rising cost of energy bills, probably aren't going to be very impressed with those £59 million just being seen as a small amount when actually the incremental cost of their energy bills is an absolute fraction of that, but it's unaffordable to them.
Andy, what sort of defence is there for what we are seeing from these energy companies? Because it really does jar, as Jack was saying, you know, £59 million. Centrica might not have given their dividends for 2 or 3 years because of the pandemic, but that is such a huge amount of money when we see that, you know, Shell was making $1,200 or pounds per second. I mean, it's remarkable amounts of money.
Yeah, so where Jack and I are probably going to agree is that the government needs to do something to tackle the immediate impact. That probably needs to be done through the welfare system, whether it's through welfare payments or through direct payments or reductions to energy bills. That needs to happen. The consequences of these energy price rises are going to be absolutely appalling for people. Would, though, be wrong to conclude that the people to blame for that are people running energy companies? They, like any other company in the economy, pay taxes. When their profits rise, the amount of tax they pay goes up. And if you're an oil and gas company at the moment, the amount of tax you're paying is astronomical, and it's rising by several times what it used to be a couple of years ago. So they will be paying back some of this money, but it's up to the government to set the policy environment that ensures that people are treated fairly.
But if Shell have doubled their profits in a year, I mean, that is a remarkable position to be in. Would it not make sense to them as a company to say, we really do need to look at what the impact of this is having on public who can't afford their bills? And actually, from a PR perspective, it would be a simple thing to do to say, let's share some of that excess profit that we've got. We know we're paying a lot of tax, but wouldn't that be great for the public to see that we're doing that?
Well, Shell, to be clear, is a global corporation operating in 70 countries. So why that company should be thinking only about welfare in the UK is not clear-cut. And at the same time, we want these companies to be investing in the energy future that will get bills down long-term. So Centrica, for example, the other company that was mentioned this week, they're investing in gas storage in the Rough field in the North Sea. We don't have gas storage in this country. We've got about 5 days' supply, and we are extremely exposed if there is a winter crisis, as everybody expects. So we want them to do that. It's going to cost £2 billion. Do we want them putting the money into that or into transfer payments?
Can I just provide some context here? Because Andy's here representing the IEA, but the IEA have received sizable donations from fuel companies and the energy industry since 1967. And I think viewers at home deserve the context that he's speaking to defend energy companies from when he's literally funded by them.
And that's fine.
Just to be clear, I'm here because I've got 20 years' experience in the energy industry and understand what is a vastly complicated set of interlocking markets.
But you are also paid and funded by that industry.
We don't allow people who donate to the IEA to have any say over what IEA spokespeople say.
So you don't represent the interests of your donors?
No.
But, Jack, can I just ask you, I mean, one of the interesting things there is that Rishi Sunak has said that there will be a windfall tax on the energy companies, a one-off. Liz Truss has said there simply won't be. But even with that kind of windfall tax, how much do you think that individuals should be helped? And what is it that the people that you speak to, I know you're writing a book about it at the moment, what is it that would help? Because I think it's the prepayment ones that are anybody on a prepayment. If you don't have that money at that point, your fridge won't work. Your cooker won't work. You can't feed your kids that night.
So a few months ago, the government did actually propose a temporary stabilisation measure by which they would give money to the energy companies to ensure that people's bills wouldn't go over a certain amount. So if people were struggling to afford to pay their bills, the government would subsidise that with grants. That was going to be a self-funding model, because then when energy prices stabilised again, the energy companies would pay that money back. The IEA opposed that. So for Andy to sit here and say that the government should be intervening, should be putting measures in place, the government proposed some perfectly sensible, workable, self-funding, cost-free to the taxpayer measures, and you didn't support them.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily the best way of doing that. If you get the same effect by increasing general welfare payments, then it's usually much better targeted.
But they're not doing that either.
Well, at the moment, the government's not doing anything because they're having a leadership debate trying to decide who's going to run the country.
They haven't been doing anything with regards to welfare for the last 12 years.
Sorry, why did you oppose that? You say it's not the best way, but frankly, we're not looking at the best options now. We need any options. People haven't got time to wait for best options.
Yeah, so the proposals that might do a better job of getting bills down faster. Number one, remove VAT from fuel bills. The government, current Prime Minister, said he would do that. He hasn't done it. Number two, have a look at some of the taxes that are built into bills. So there's something buried deep within the system.
Well, Liz Truss is looking at the green levies, isn't she?
Well, yeah, she's talking about moving them from bills to taxes, which is a bit tricksy because all that means is you're moving the cost and doing it through borrowing.
Considering the IEA's close relationship with about 30 Conservative Party MPs and 14 different people who you claim have been alumni of the IEA, who are senior Conservatives, why haven't you spent the last 12 years lobbying for higher welfare payments, if that's what you believe in?
Well, we're talking here about welfare payments to deal with a specific short-term crisis.
But that specific short-term crisis
there's no right level to the absolute level of welfare payments. It's whatever people agree is fair.
I've been writing about
the democratic decision.
I have been writing about the fact that energy costs are going to spiral out of control and push people over the precipice for the last 10 years. So this crisis isn't new. The size of it now and the number of people and the sheer scale of it that it's impacting is unprecedented. But it's been a long time in the making.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, energy policy has been an absolute disaster in this country. One of the areas it's been a disaster on is the supply of oil and gas, which means that we should have been in the position of being able to sell oil and gas to help the rest of Europe fight Vladimir Putin. We're not. We're begging the Belgians to bail us out in the middle of summer because the government's made such a mess of it.
Just to give people some context of what the government is doing, and Jack, you'll be able to react to this, the Energy Bill Support Scheme. Households will see a £66 discount applied to their energy bills in October and November. That'll rise to £67 a month from December to March. If you pay by direct debit, either monthly or quarterly, that will be automatically deducted. If you have a smart prepayment device, you'll see a top-up in your credit on your card. So when you go, you won't have to put as much in each time. But there are many people who have these non-smart prepayment meters, and they won't get that money automatically. You have to be done with some sort of credit voucher, some sort of voucher scheme. All of that, frankly, those numbers compared to the numbers we're talking about, just seems... It gets lost, doesn't it? It's a drop in the ocean, frankly. One of the more extreme measures that Ben's spoken to about on this programme is, what were they called?
Don't Pay UK.
Don't Pay UK. There is this campaign going on about giving people the power back to just not pay. That doesn't work if you're on a prepayment meter. But what do you make of that campaign?
I mean, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I've had my own experiences in the past where I've not been able to pay my energy bills and I've had my door kicked in by bailiffs. I've had a prepayment meter forced on me by enforcement officers and stuff like that. So I have a real fear about not paying bills. So I think I'm a bit too emotionally involved to have a reasonable response to it. But I think for people, if they're using that as a way to be heard and a way to take power back and a way to take control back, and it's going to be something that works for them, then, you know, people need to do something to be heard, because simply just, you know, trying to raise our voices and saying that this is having a bit of an impact is not, it doesn't seem to be getting through.
Andy, one of the really important things, and I think which you've already identified, is there is a leadership contest going on at the moment. So the debate that needs to be the solutions that need to be found are being lost in the fact that nobody is actually leading the country right now. Boris Johnson's planning his wedding celebrations. what do you and your institute want to see happen? How quickly can things happen in order to help those people who are sitting at home and messaging us saying, I can't afford the £500 a month that I'm going to have come next year. The profits from Centrica are absolutely outrageous. People should be protesting head offices. I mean, our viewers in their droves, it's never been like this, are saying how much they're struggling. What do you and your institute want to see happen, and how quickly can it turn around?
Short term, the only thing we can do, because it's a gas crisis, is get more imports of gas from all over the world. And everybody's competing for the same resources. So trade deals are the way forward there. In the medium term, we need to make it a lot easier to produce energy domestically, not just oil and gas, wind, solar, nuclear, anything else that might work. To that, we need to deregulate the energy sector to make it much easier to build, reduce planning regulations so that NIMBYs can't stop people building in their backyard. And we need to carpet large parts of England in wind farms. We need to have fracking starting off.
By January, is it, unfortunately, for people?
There is no short-term solution.
Okay.
This is a global energy crisis.
Gosh. Right. Well, Shell have said that they have hardship funds to help people who have difficulties in paying their bills, with payment holidays, rescheduling of payments and other ways to make sure that they provide relief where they say it is needed most. Centrica say that through the British Gas Energy Support Fund, they're providing grants to help customers pay their energy bills. Thank you to both of you for joining us.
Jack, Andy, thanks for joining us.